There we go. Wait for this to go through. What would be funny if this joint is actually just like streaming right now to YouTube.
Well, it says
Like,
live in the
oops.
corner. Is that what it's supposed to say?
Yeah, because what it's doing is it's doing it live, but technically it's just recording like an image of it that I can either download or I can send it anywhere I want to. That's why I really like it, honestly. All right. What's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Sammy Leggett here, representing Team JVS. We are back. And I mean we. I'm here with a partner in crime this time. He's been doing an amazing job with his reviews. And he has something to say. And we're talking about Lovecraft Country, limited series, maybe season 1. Here we go. What's going on, Lucas?
Oh, man. Nothing much. Finally out of the Doom Patrol and Stargirl universe for a change.
Right? A lot of you guys don't know, like, Lucas has been like legit grinding. Lucas has been doing reviews. He's been doing like TV reviews, movie reviews, everything. And I've been on the back end doing like reactions to both shows, and it's just been a whole lot to handle. So I don't know how Lucas does it. But we're gonna go over episode 1 of Lovecraft Country. Now, just to give you guys context, this is a spoiler review. So if you don't want to get spoiled, go check out our non-spoiler review. We got a non-spoiler review for every single episode up until the very last part. So you don't have to be worried on to see like a non-filtered or filtered review. Now, other thing is, I have no idea what Lucas thinks about the show. I have no idea what he thinks about any episode. So this is going to be my first reaction to what he thinks and his first reaction to what I think, even though I think he probably gets adjusted to what I think. But yeah, Lucas, so before we even go into this, you have a surrounding understanding of the book, that this is based on the book. So from your perception, before you even got into this first episode, what was your, what did you anticipate, I guess, going into this?
I was extremely hyped going into this show. Like I read the book when it came out in 2016, like late 2016, I think is when I first read the book. Turned around and read it again in 2019, and then read it again about 3 months before this show was coming out, because while the book is not the greatest and its narrative can throw you off from time to time, it's really enjoyable. So I just came into the show thinking it's going to be an enjoyable show. I understand the ride it's going to take you on. I understand everything it's supposed to do. And I'm like, this is going to be an enjoyable show. And at one point, I thought that this could be close to the like groundbreaking, like the water cooler show of the year. Because the content of Lovecraft with the monsters and all the social issues in this show, I'm like, man, you combine both of those together in a time we're in now, this could be one of those shows that skyrocket. Yeah. That was my initial thought going into episode 1.
He had a lot of high expectations. I didn't know what the heck this was about. I had no preconceived notions about what this was going to be about. I had no idea that there was going to be monsters. I really had no clue anything. I didn't even know it was based on the book. I thought it was based on the man Lovecraft, and technically it is drawing from a lot of the source material from him, but I had no idea this came from a book. So we're probably going to have different reactions just up front. So yeah. So anyway, so the episode opens up with our main character, Atticus. Atticus is on a bus. He's coming back home from the war, and his dad is missing. That's the unfiltered version. But the very opening shot is what you see right here, which is a well, how do we detail this, Lucas?
This is actually one of Lovecraft's monsters. At this moment, I am blanking which monster it is.
I know what you're talking about.
This is supposed to be like
so that's with a C, right?
Yeah,
it's a weird name.
Chikala? Is it Chikala?
Chupacabra?
Something like it's something of that nature. I cannot remember the name of this monster that it is for Lovecraft, but this is one of Lovecraft's bigger known monsters also. So this is just this shot here. This shot is supposed to set the tone for, to me, the whole series, because just to have that imagery up front with this, and then him fighting in the ward 1 minute, then Jackie Robinson saving him the next minute, it really is supposed to set a tone for the quirkiness that you're going to get out the show. That's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and I think that adding on to that, what it did for me, it just threw me completely off, because when I saw that, I was like, that Jackie Robinson batting this monster, and then the monster's just going to come right back. And why is there an alien descending from the sky, grabbing him? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so what I did was immediately, I was like, because the tone shift, it completely went to just grounded. Like, okay, where is he from? What is the situation? What is the era that's going on? And it stayed very grounded up until maybe the last act of the episode, because it kind of centered around him really just trying to figure out what was going on with his dad. You get to find out that Letty is a person that is kind of ambitious, but nobody kind of really trusts her necessarily. What's my man that playing Uncle George? What's his name?
Courtney B. Vance.
Courtney B. Vance. He is the uncle of Atticus, and they have what seems to be a really good relationship, but there seems to be a lot of turmoil there within the family dynamic, which most of us can connect to, which is really interesting. But what happens is, as soon as they go to leave to get to this location, everything goes downhill, because they start to understand, oh, wow, this is very dangerous. And Atticus is very adamant about trying to find a father that, in his opinion, really didn't care too much about him. But what do you think from that point, as far as the grounded level part of this episode? Like, what kind of stuck out to you?
You know, the thing that stuck out the most to me from this episode, and it could sound nitpicky. I'm going to say that up front. Could sound a little nitpicky here. It was the musical selection. Like, they went out their way to make it seem haunting from the beginning. And at times it for me, it threw me out of the seriousness that I understand that this part of the story is supposed to encompass. And then the biggest mistake I've made coming to this show was reading the book, because I shouldn't have done that, because boy, do they change a lot. And when they change a lot, it took me out of the tone of me. One, I kind of already know where it's going, but it just took me out with the music, with some of the selections. It took me out of like that groundedness that is the best part of the book early on. Granted, it is still very grounded. It is still very like straightforward of what you're getting with these characters in these situations. Letty is not fully explained to you the way you would want her to be before you're going into this, which is, to me, definitely something they should have worked on. And they should have highlighted Atticus and Uncle George's relationship a little bit more, because that's really a deep relationship that they kind of hint towards, but don't give you enough of it.
Yeah, so they use a lot of exposition. Like they talk around who they are to each other, but you can kind of tell, it's like, with certain sly remarks. I think there was a moment where Letty was getting like fussed out by her brother, and like Atticus, you could tell, you know how like you have kids that have this look on their face, like they know abuse, they know how a situation go. And Atticus, the actor that played it, he did a really good job of kind of like, he really wanted to engage me. It's like back in the day, you know, you stay out of people's business. You don't go and step on somebody else's toes, because you don't want to say, this is how you handle your family. No, you have enough people telling you what you can and can't be. So it's like people try to stay out of each other's way with that. But when he was doing that, his uncle was like, no, don't do that. And then like he made this sly remark, like, oh, just like you let my uncle do, like just like you let my dad do this, or just like you weren't there for me and like this. I was like, dang. And it makes for really good moments. And I to what Lucas is saying, it would have added more volume if there was even like small little flashbacks or nudges, just kind of giving you a little bit more meat and potatoes about how their dynamic really works. And even like you said with Letty, I had no idea who she even was. I was like, I see that she's, you know, ambitious. I see that she's halfway crazy. And she kind of fits this cookie cutter mold that, you know, most, you know, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to say that. But but they kind of paint her.
You were thinking the same thing I was.
They paint her into this box. But she has these really, and I think that this is Jurnee's way of kind of pushing the character as best she could, of making her character flush out and stand out. Like there's some very key moments where it's kind of like, oh wow, she stands out right here. Like I know that they're pushing her character this way, but there's more to her character than this. And I think that was what kind of kept me engaged and wanting to see where things go. But then they get into a situation that I thought was one of the more scary situations, where they were at the diner, as you can see in the picture right here, and Letty go to the bathroom, and she was overhearing them talking. She's like, we got to get the hell out of here now. And I was like, oh my gosh, they about to go. Because they already said, you know, I don't know who's scarier, the sheriff of this town or the things that are just going missing. And they set an interesting tone. It's like, yo, if you get caught out there, you might get lynched, die, or whoever knows what. And so they ran, and of course he caught up with them, but he put a timetable on them. He was like, look, if y'all don't get out of town by this time, you know, this could happen. And I was terrified. Like, for real, like, I was like, yo, I don't know. Because I didn't know the tone. I didn't know what would or could happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, yo, like, is this going to be a really bad situation? We've seen some stuff. We've seen some terrible things, you know?
It was going, if they didn't get that out of there by sundown, it was going to be an extremely bad situation. Yeah. But that's again something they should have set up a little. That's something they should have set up a little bit more, because going into the diner, if you're not paying really, really close attention, you may not understand why Uncle George picked that diner. And that's because they don't do a good job at the beginning explaining that Uncle George is a person who's created a Negro travel guide. And in his Negro travel guide, that diner is supposed to be a safe diner for Negroes to eat at.
Yeah.
So that's why he picks this diner. That's the only reason he picks this diner, is because according to his notes, someone who his wife normally does the research. So his wife does the research. This is supposed to be a safe place for Black people to eat. That's why he goes in there like that. And they do a semi-good job of the setup of how Atticus finds out why this place isn't safe. And the analogy with the White House is an awesome analogy to use.
That was dope.
In the book.
I like that.
Like, it's a beautiful setup. In the book, that scene just drags out a little bit longer. It fleshes out more. So you get an understanding more of Atticus and Uncle George's relationship at that moment in the diner more than you do in the show. And the show kind of rushes through it, and it gives Letty a moment that is not necessarily there in the book. It doesn't give her that moment in the book. Not like that. Okay. So
that's
one of the things, it was something that it was something they felt they should streamline. Yeah. And that's why they streamlined it the way they did.
Yeah.
But the part with the sheriff is even when reading a book, the part with the sheriff is one of the most interesting parts of this book early on, when he tells them, do you know what a sundown town is? And they like, yes. And you got 7 minutes. Because I will shoot you dead and hang you if you are here and it's sundown.
And I was like, even the actor that played it, I was like, yo, this man means this. Like, I was, and this is what was so, I liked it. I personally liked it from the science fiction side of me. Like, there was all of a sudden, they were trying to get away initially from the first mob. And like, there's this like silver car that's like pitched out black windows. And I was like, in that day and time, like, what in the world? What is this? And then I was kind of like, all of a sudden it just stopped and like went into mid. I was like, that don't add up, because the car didn't even move. I was like, what? Like, I legit, I had like a double take moment. I was like, yo, Stranger Things, is this, what are we doing right now? So I thought that was a really nice little Easter egg into like where this science fiction part of things are going to go. But then we get to about this moment right here where they are in the woods and they are on the ground and they are about to die, essentially.
Yes.
And they have them dead to rights. And all of a sudden you hear something. And I forget if it was Uncle George. Uncle George, low key, like, I love Uncle George, for real, for real. Like, Uncle George, he has enough engagement that he seems like he's a good soul. He seems like he really does care. He wants to do the right thing, but he ain't gonna take nothing from nobody. And like, he was like, yo, something don't sound right. And the sheriff was like, what are you talking about? All of a sudden, like, somebody just gets like their arm bit off.
Yep.
And I was like, fam, what is going on? And after that, they had what I call a black moment. They were like, we gone. We peace it. I don't care if y'all shoot me or not, I'm out. And I would have done the same thing. Like, they got into the house, and the sheriff, their arms halfway gone. Uncle George is out there, and they sitting there contemplating what to do. And like, in my head, I was like, this is a worst case scenario, because now I don't know what's going to happen. And it gets worse because when Uncle George finally does get back, he was like coming up with this analogy because he loves books. And he was like, you remember that story of Dracula where what happens with this on a vampire? And I was looking, I was like, no, this man is not about to transform into one of these. And sure enough, in front of our face, like, this man transforms into one of these creatures. And I was like, bruh, shoot him. Like, I was sitting there like, the other sheriff, I was like, bro, you're going to have to shoot this man. He's going to kill you and he's going to kill everybody. Stop it. And I love that moment because it was like, I didn't expect it. Okay. Like they left me with, okay, there's monsters in the woods. I didn't perceive that these monsters would be able to bite them and transform them. That I was like, I love the science fiction of that. I love the horror aspect of that. But I think one of my favorite moments was when Jurnee as Letty was kind of like, she knew she was the one that was going to have to get to the car. And like, before she even got to, they talk about it later on, like episode 3 or 4, but she just starts to like pray. And like, if you knew her background a little bit more, and I think that's what Lucas was saying, like, if you know a bit more about her background, that would have meant so much more then.
Yes.
But she starts to kind of like pray, and like, he's like, are you okay? And she's like, no, I'm not okay. But she goes and she makes a run for it. And I was scared for this girl's whole life. I was like, yo, they about to take Jurnee out in the first episode. I was like, this is epic. But I love the way that they, symbiotically help work them together, as from a chemistry standpoint, from a relationship standpoint. He trusted her enough to do that, even though he didn't want her to do it. And later on, that does pay off with something else. But I mean, I don't know. I think what the problem is with episode 1 and a lot of other episodes is that they just throw puzzle pieces at you.
Yes.
Without really giving you, how like with the puzzle piece, like at least you got like a little border on the outside to know where the puzzle pieces are going.
Or before you get the puzzle, I can at least
see what the picture is. Yeah.
I can see what the picture's supposed to look like. Here, again, especially if you're coming into it fresh and you don't know anything, I don't know how irritated I would have been if I didn't already know what the setup was. Because at times they were just throwing things and you're like, well, why? How's this fitting here? Why did Letty just come out the blue? Like, what is the situation with Uncle George? You're not explaining why he knows this stuff about Dracula fully like you need to. So how do we know about this stuff? Like, it's gaps that they leave out to streamline this episode. Because at times for me, the episode feels rushed. It feels like we're jumping from one scene to the next scene, to the next scene, to the next scene, and we're not getting the moments of reflection you need for the characters. Instead, it felt they used the horror elements to attempt to build and bring the characters together. And that's what, like, that was I'm gonna say an interesting choice to take. is to use the horror elements to attempt to build relationships for the characters.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with Lucas, and this is me again. I had no preconceived notions about anything about this, but I knew that from the opening shot, I was like, this is way too much for me. Like, I don't even know where to connect this. So in my head, I was like, I have to block this off. I can't think about this because I'm gonna be so busy trying to figure out how does this connect to this, how did this work with this, and so I blocked it off. And instead, I focused on this moment right here, him reading this book. You understand that he loves science fiction, but you also see that he has some stuff that went on in the war that we just don't know about. And that, for me, laid a foundation for the rest of the show, because that means that every single character has that same exact dynamic, and they do. From the character Christina that we're going to find out a little bit later on that was in the car, from Letty, from Uncle George, and then eventually his dad. But every single character has things that they are not sharing, and you don't find out until they unfold in front of you. Which I think that from, the general consumers, they have a short attention span. They just want stuff to happen. Like you want to keep them, riveting. But us as critics, or even I shouldn't say even critics, because critics are fine with that too. People that are storytellers and love,
go.
The craft of a way a story actually supposed to flow. It could be. I had to turn that side of my brain off, and I had to kind of just look at it. And I'm glad that I didn't read the book because I was able to do that.
Because I was not. I tried my hardest, and I watched the episode twice. I watched it the first time, going into it from the books, and then I said, okay, if I look at it fully this way, this is one of the worst shows I've ever seen. So I need to watch this again and erase all my preconceived notions about the book to see. And it still felt like the story wasn't built enough for me. Yeah, I understand why it's streamlined. I think that's the key part of when they make decisions about you understanding why that decision was made. I fully understand why it was made, because I feel they're going for a pulp type of show and not necessarily a deep type of show. So while the material is very deep, they have decided to go lighter on the show than the material that anyone coming into this expecting the Watchmen level deep, because that's what this book is, and that's what I thought. Yeah, you'll be disappointed. If you are just going into here for a nice sci-fi show and semi-good storytelling, semi-good acting, things of that nature, then this could be a really good show for you. But don't expect like storytelling at its best. That's just not going to happen here. Yeah, I think that this episode will let you know the way the rest of the show is going to be. There are some episodes that I think that excel over this episode for sure, but this will let you know, this will paint the picture for you as best as you're going to get. Because to be honest with you, the subject matter that's in this is very deep, dark, and deep-seated. I mean, generationally. Like, just if you went, well, later on, we'll talk about it with other episodes, but there is a interesting part about bloodline and human perspective and like who is allowed to be what, even though this person is way more privileged in this position. It goes so many deep levels, but they don't really draw it out. Instead, they try to allow your attention to be gazed while things are moving around you. And I think that that's where Lucas is kind of getting into it. And I can agree to that because I was like, yo, that was really, man, if I think about it, that was really dark, man. That was really deep. That hurt me. You know what I'm saying? Like certain moments like legit actually hurt me emotionally because I was like, I've had that feeling. You know what I'm saying? And the show really could go for that. But that's not what whoever is doing this is trying to do. And I don't really know who's pulling the strings with this show, personally. So it's a bad robot show, technically. I'm assuming Bad Robot has final say so over exactly what you're going to get out of this show. I mean, the name Jordan Peele is thrown around, but Jordan Peele technically, I think he just had the rights to it, and he took the rights to Bad Robot, and
Yeah,
then
I
they
think
built the show. So it's, and even though granted it has that Jordan Peele feel too, which just that's not a serious thing for a lot of reasons. That's just not the way I feel. His projects, along with Bad Robots, I don't think they come together to make those deep seated type of shows. I mean, as much as we believe that Get Out is a very deep film, in all honesty, it's not. It's a Pulp Fiction type of film. Like it
mhm.
gets you, it hits you really quick. It leaves you with questions to ask yourself. And I
Yeah,
think that's the goal of this one, especially in this
yeah,
first episode, was to leave you with questions to ask yourself. But that doesn't work as well on television as that does in film.
film. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you're absolutely right. I think that with this first episode alone, they leave you with so much material for make you question the characters' motivations, what they've been through, who they really are. That it's more so after you've seen the episode, you really get to kind of like unpack where you feel about it and where it
Mm-hmm.
hits you. Which that's why for us binging through this was
Yeah.
not as good of an experience. Versus if I would have just watched it, you know, all right, this week, all right, let's talk about it. All right, what did that really mean, bro? Like, you know, like instead we went back to back to back to back, and I was like, yo, I need to
It's
pray
a lot.
for a second.
Yeah,
I need to
it's-
pray
yeah.
and rebuke and bind some stuff, and then I need to kind of think about how this impacted me as an African American man.
Mhm.
So yeah. But as far as the first episode, I think that from a general consumer standpoint, you guys are going to enjoy it. I think that it's going to be exciting enough for you guys to be enthralled by it from the science fiction part of it alone. I think it does have some really good shots as far as like VFX and cinematography in a show. I think they did some really good things with it. To Lucas's point, when it comes to music, I wasn't that jaded by it because I know Jordan Peele.
Man, it so bothered me.
So I knew what kind of music was gonna be there when what happened when there was a party that was going on in the town, and I was like, what in the world is going on here?
And
Okay, cool.
the way they flip to the current music versus like it's literally music from that time period that you could have played there. That's pretty good, and they just like nope. But then
because
that's a trend for the remainder episodes to do the same thing.
Yeah, because I think that Jurnee actually had a really interesting song that she had with the person that plays the sister in this show called Ruby. We'll get about her character later on. She might be. Never mind. We ain't gonna talk about her now. Anyway, we're done. Lucas, closing thoughts on this episode, and we gotta go to the next episode.
Okay, this is not my favorite episode of this show. This episode. If I did not know a lot of source material, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna disagree with Sam. If I did not know the material, this would have been the only episode I watched. This episode took me completely out of the story. And while it has interesting moments, because I wanted more out of those moments, I would have just said, you know what, maybe this isn't the show for me. And I think that's going to be a lot of the case for a lot of people. You're going to come in with preconceived notions, maybe not off of reading the book, just off of what you've heard on social media and people's reactions to it. And then you're going to see it, and it's not going to be your cup of tea. I'm going to try to stick with it for at least 2-3 episodes. You may like it, but this first one, this was a miss for me. This first one.
Yeah, I mean, my only comment would be is that I agree with Lucas on the way that this has kind of been cookie cutter. I would say that part of the element like the first few minutes of the episode.
Yes.
You really didn't shut off in your brain and just kind of like, okay, just focus in on what's going on with characters more so than the way the narrative is kind of painting them, because the narrative isn't doing a refined enough job to give you what you really need to understand how this is going to go. But for me, I was entertained. It kept me very surprised most of the time. And part of that, again, I had no idea what I was getting into. I loved the horror element of the last act, and not just that, like there's a moment at the end of this episode that I was kind of like, if I was in the woods bleeding or blood all over me, African American in the 1950s, and a car rode up to me, and they were definitely not looking like me, what would I do? Like that question alone, I'm kind of like, yo, I had to go to the next episode, like, because I was like, that's crazy. So for me, I didn't have as much issue with it. This was not my favorite episode of the season at all, but it kept me in field enough to see where it's gonna go. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this review. If you want, again, well, this is our spoiler review, so we're gonna go to the next episode. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace, everybody.